We can beat China at their own game when selling in Africa. We can get big contractors buying goods from UK manufacturers instead of from China. This finance structure would be an absolute game changer for UK SMEs. How do I know it works? Because I've done it. My working background is in international trade, generally working for UK manufacturers selling their goods across continental Europe and Africa. Back in 2019, I had a job selling UK manufactured construction equipment into Africa, and I had notable success selling to a huge multi-million pound project called Konza Technopolis in Kenya. I successfully sold a lot of UK manufactured construction equipment to the contractor there, who had historically only bought machinery from China. A key success factor was being able to offer the client 1-year payment terms. Therefore, I convinced him to buy goods from UK SMEs that he'd never heard of. Plate compactors and wheelbarrows from Derbyshire, lighting towers made in Lincolnshire, pressure washers made in Devon, and tools for working on dry concrete from Warwickshire. 5 years later, this contractor said that buying all this equipment from UK SMEs he'd never heard of was a brilliant purchasing decision. He said that although the cost of the UK manufactured goods was maybe 2 or 3 times that of the machines he bought from China, they'd lasted 10, 15 times longer than the goods from China, so greatly reduces maintenance costs. This proves that with the right finance product, UK SMEs can beat Chinese competition in Africa where China is very strong. The problem for me, unfortunately, was I found loads of deals like this. However, the finance structure was missing so much of the time. UK Export Finance is a government department that helps UK companies with export contracts by providing their foreign buyers with attractive terms. They also ensure that the UK company exporting gets paid by insuring the buyer. The UK government is acting as a guarantor. It's actually a bank that lends the foreign buyer the money, but the UK government acts as guarantor. UK Export Finance has the motto that no UK export should fail due to lack of finance. While waiting to be paid by the Kenyan government, these contractors borrow from their local bank in Kenyan shillings, and the interest rate there is typically 25%. One reason why UK Export Finance is popular is due to the amount of non-UK goods that you can sell that are covered as part of the deal. However, on the downside, the UK government is backing orders where a large proportion of the order doesn't actually originate from the UK. The UK Export Finance application process is very bureaucratic, as the buyer has to submit an awful lot of documents. Another problem is that only past performance of the buyer is considered when they make the loan application. This means that UK suppliers miss out on a lot of potentially good projects. Let's take an example where you have a UK exporter trying to sell £1.5 million worth of goods to an African contractor. That African contractor is a small company making £300,000 worth of profit every year, and they've made £300,000 worth of profit every year for the last 3 years. They've now won a big new project for which their projected profit is £3 million. However, UK Export Finance would only cover them for a loan up to £900,000 to be paid back over 3 years, because they're only going to take their past performance as a guide to how well they can pay off a loan. They're not considering the pipeline. However, the banks that work with UK Export Finance who are providing these loans don't like amounts such as £900,000. They like much bigger amounts. So this seemingly very, very viable contract will not get covered by UK Export Finance. African contractors who have good balance sheets and are doing projects for foreign developers and being paid in US dollars, we should offer them a 2 to 3 year loan in US dollars at 8% interest per annum. Of course, do some fact checking on the developer to ensure that the likelihood of that developer paying the African contractor is of course high. Then insist that 50% of the loan is spent immediately on goods from UK SMEs. We therefore ensure that these UK SMEs who don't have the capacity to send sales reps into Africa get orders and they are guaranteed payment and their cash flow is good. 40% of the loan can be spent on improving their cash flow for the project and buying materials which are sourced locally. These are things like cement, where it makes no sense to buy British. And then lock in the contractor and say that 10% of the value of the loan must be used to buy goods from UK manufacturers whose products are needed later on in the project. We therefore lend to companies with good balance sheets so that the risk is quite low, but in exchange for the loan, we ensure that a lot of expenditure upfront goes to UK small and medium-sized manufacturers, and I already have the testimonials to show that these UK manufactured goods are great value for money due to their long durability. For African contractors who are doing government projects and being paid in local currency, we then offer them a loan in foreign currency at 11%, with a small bit of hedging. So the UK government is only taking risk if that African currency completely collapses. However, we asked for 60% of the value of the loan to be immediately spent in buying goods from UK manufacturers. So we immediately bag that huge upside for our UK manufacturers. 40% of that loan goes towards them having some working capital and cleaning up their balance sheet at present and paying off some high interest loans. The worst case scenario is that the client defaults on their loan. However, we would have not let a lot of that money go to them because we would have spent it immediately with UK manufacturers. So the worst case scenario is our UK manufacturers sell goods in another part of the world where they're not present and get a great testimonial that they could use for future export projects. So I'm just doing a basic thing. As the risk increases, I'm making sure that the amount of reward for the UK is larger. And many people have been critical recently that the UK government has given in too much in international negotiations. UK export finance is popular. However, it only asks for 20% of the order to be UK content. It would be valid for any UK company selling excavators and ground clearing equipment that has the engines which can be used in Africa, a load of manufacturers making light construction equipment, and then if you think that we could do this for affordable housing projects, warehouses, data centers, any company that manufactures the interior fittings, even floor tiles could be included on this deal. When talking about an industrial strategy, of course, a lot of points have to be covered. I firmly believe, because I've been there and done it and succeeded with this, that this would be one great aspect of an industrial strategy to boost our exports, build up more and more testimonials where actually contractors are coming to us for solutions using our machinery, seeing the huge benefits of UK manufactured machinery being so much more durable than Chinese machinery, prove the narrative wrong that everything's going to China, pull that back because UK manufactured goods would be kicking out Chinese machinery in very, very big contracts. And then we could really be positive about the UK's outlook and we'd be showing a sign towards prosperity.